Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do, because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes. Get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN.
Buongiorno.
Hello.
Hi.
You seem a little out of it.
Oh, it's just been
Oh, boy.
It's just been a long day, and my kids are screaming, and I'm tired, and I don't want to be doing this. It feels like,
Oh my gosh, wait. You don't want to be talking to me?
it feels like being a widow is like the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Kind of like life
But it's
is.
stupid life, because I was just thinking, like, I just had one of those moments like, is Jason really dead? Like, what? How is this my life? Like, how did this happen? Ah!
Well, and Anita's kids are screaming in the background and she does not care.
I know Mel's like, they're being noisy. I'm like, I don't care.
So everybody, you're just going to hear it and you're all here for it. Welcome.
We went out of town. We got back today, so we have lots of energy.
This is going to be a long recording session.
Not me. I don't have any energy. They have all the energy. They're crazy people.
I'm going to play Candy Crush while you're talking to me because I'm just expecting you to turn around and yell at them.
Okay, ready?
Like I actually am playing Candy Crush.
You guys
kiddo.
are being so noisy. Be quiet. I'm recording.
Ooh, good job.
Okay.
They listen.
Thanks, Mel.
I still have more moves on Candy Crush. Just a minute.
Are we really widows?
Yeah. Sorry to break it to you.
What the heck?
It's so weird because now I've been a widow longer than I was married to Scott, and I don't even know how to process any of it.
Stupid.
Because I don't have the memories, and it happened, and it destroyed my life.
Yeah.
And also, there's a lot of, like, every single situation in my life now has come from being a widow, and, like, the growth and the crappy parts, or, like, what I've decided to do with a career change, or like what I've decided to not hold on to and what to hold on to from my before life.
Right.
And it's just wild.
Yeah.
But guess what?
What?
I'm going on a trip.
Is it a 3-hour tour?
No longer. It's a 1-week tour, and then I'm going on another trip for another week tour.
Mel, you're like getting out there, seeing the world, doing the things.
Yeah, you want to know why? Because I've been so reclusive, and it's like, oh my gosh, I was so reclusive that I didn't even take my trailer out at all this year. And now here we are in August.
So you're gonna,
and I'm going to take it out.
That sounds fun. Have an enjoyable time with Janet the trailer.
I will. And I just was like, how long should I go? I don't know. So I booked a whole week, and it's like, well, at least I booked a week. And then I'll just see what happens day by day.
That's great.
And then the next week, I'm going to go to Lake Powell. But don't worry, I'll be back for like a few hours in between so we can record our next blah blah for the next episode.
I'm pretty sure there's no water in Lake Powell, so have fun in the mud.
There is water in Lake Powell because my friends got an email that said it's still going to be open.
Oh, I was just joking, but
for
apparently
no, yeah.
there was some seriousness to that. We just had our Zoom hangs for the Widow Wives Club. Thank you to everybody who came. That was a good time. Was had by all-ish, you know.
So fun to see you all, and also so stupid for the reason that you're there. But it's always so fun to get to know our friends that we just know from the internet.
And we met some new people today. We had new people join both the morning and the afternoon Zoom. So that was really, really fun.
Yeah. Thanks to everybody that came. And just as a reminder, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, if you are in our Widow Wives Club on Facebook, you will know that we have these Zoom hangs every month, and they are facilitated by our friend, who's also a widow, named Autumn Barker. Her episode was last week, and we show up to those too, and we have a lot of fun meeting new friends and like seeing how each meeting turns out. So they're twice a month. And if you would like to be a part of our Widow Wives Club, it's free. It's a free group on Facebook. Search for the Widow Wives Club on Facebook. It's in conjunction with the podcast. If you cannot find it, you can go to our Instagram, and our link is in the bio, or our website. Or you can email us, widowwedonow@gmail.com. Answer all the questions. Or you're going to hear about it from someone, because we have people helping us. So we want everybody to be in there that it needs to be there. So it breaks our hearts when we have to say decline because you didn't click I agree to the rules.
Yeah, and we are really picky about it because we want the Widow Wives Club to be a very, very safe place where you know that everybody who is there belongs there. So just do the thing, and then you'll know that you're in a protected space.
Yep, and then you'll be able to know when the Zoom hangs are next time, and you can, too, talk about monkeys and what to do with your partner's underwear.
Tattoos.
Or skydiving.
Cheese.
TARDIS.
All the things. If you want to help keep the podcast going, we have 3 options for you. The first option is totally free, and it's called Leave Us a Rating and Review. That just helps us.
You're going to say, leave us alone.
Leave us alone. No, we don't want you to leave us alone. We like to hear from you guys.
Yeah, we like you guys.
Rating and review, it helps other people be able to find the podcast, and we want people to find us if they need us. The second option is to buy us a taco at buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonow. That's just a one-time donation type of a thing, and we'll go get tacos.
Yeah.
The third option is
Patreon.
And Patreon is a website that allows people to support creators. That's the word I was trying to think of. It's a website that helps people support creators. So that's patreon.com/WWDN.
We have 4 levels starting at $5. One of the levels helps Anita to be able to get a babysitter so that she can preserve what's left of her sanity, except for I don't think she actually has any sanity left. Plus, and that left a long time ago.
Right now it's like 9 o'clock at night. So no babysitter right
over
now.
It.
Yep. So we'd love for you to join us on Patreon, or to buy us a taco, or to leave us a rating and review. If you have questions or want to reach out to us, email us at widowwedonow@gmail.com. One of the benefits of being a patron is we give you a shout out. So we're going to do the shout out right now. We're going to start with our secret dead husband. And she says,
The widow. Soon we'll be making another run. You got this, widows.
Next, we have Constance Dahlbach,
David Kelly.
Don Satterwhite,
Ivan the Misner.
Kat,
Krista, wait! Our new dead husband. We love you, Krista.
Next, we have Amy,
Amy Sapp.
Ashley Hahn. I did it right this time on the first try.
Christina Shiflett.
Danielle Katterberg,
Not a Debbie Downer.
Dennis Brazo,
The saxophone. Jenny Taylor.
Jenny Wang,
Kathy Murray.
Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts, and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC registered investment advisor. Kirsten Stromberg,
Leslie Webb.
Missy, I Dive Out of Airplanes on Tuesdays, Schubert,
Whose episode is today. Sarah Morris.
Sylvia Shore,
Karen from Canada.
Anna Tracy,
Christina Scambato.
Christine Anderson,
Mindy Holmgren.
Don Barber,
Diana Becker.
Emily Thornton,
Emily Toledo.
Aaron Pozick,
Gabe Lozano.
Ian Sini,
Ileana Bell Ruiz.
the resident of the Pennsylvania train.
Jamie Aliota.
One of my children has broken into my bedroom. My mom,
Jenny Barrow.
Jocelyn Milo,
Fancy Lady.
Katie Radcliffe,
Kara Scara.
Lori Farrington,
Marie Hoffman.
Marjorie Lewis,
Mary McGowan.
Peter Rukavina. Thank you, Peter.
The website Master. Sarah Kennedy.
Shannon Helm,
Sunshine and Disco Haven.
Tammy Schwartz,
Tara Wallace. Valerie should have been a Frenchie breeder packer.
and Paint Chip Sample Wendy.
Ooh, I love paint chips.
Yes, they're fun. Thank you to everybody who supports us on the Patreon. We love and appreciate every single one of you. Gracias.
Yes. All right. Well, Anita's children have all successfully broken into her room, so we are going to get to the episode.
I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
We're two young widows who just are riding the ride over and over and over and over again.
And Anita's over it.
And we're trying to figure out widow. We do know.
Do know.
Goodbye.
Thank you, child.
Mel,
What?
we have a 2-for-1.
I know.
I always love when we can get a 2 for the price of 1, especially because it's free anyway. So
And this is such a unique, what's the word?
situation.
Situation. Yes.
Circumstance.
Situation. All of those things. Yeah.
It's kind of a tangled web, so we're going to have to unweave it bit by bit.
Mm-hmm.
Who do we have here, Mel?
Well, we have the Schuberts, Missy Schubert, and her mother-in-law, who's also a widow, Dorothy Schubert. You guys, Dorothy Schubert. Welcome.
Thank you. You'd be surprised how many people say that, though.
Sherbet.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite flavor of sherbet?
Pineapple.
Schubert. Falafel?
Pineapple.
Pineapple. I'm so glad. I've never heard of falafel.
Maybe
No, I can't even say the word.
Maybe we need to invent that.
I don't think we do. Missy and Dorothy, where are you recording from?
At Dorothy's house in Orem, Utah.
What's the zip code? Just kidding. Don't tell us the zip code.
840.
What's your bank account number and the back of your credit card?
Well, Dorothy's 3 digits are 700.
All right, everyone, scammers.
Right.
If you want to scam us, you better do some deep diving and listen to our episodes.
Okay.
The mayhem.
Let's see if we can get your story out here in a way that people can understand. Are you ready? Okay, Missy, how about we start with you?
Okay. Well, I am currently 29. At the time of Stephen dying, I was 28. We met on a mission for our church back in Iowa, and that was in 2013. And I was 20 at the time, and he was 19.
Oh, you were just young kids.
Oh, you're older than Steven. You're a cougar.
I am a cougar, and he used to love to tell people that I was 2 years older because from my birthday to his birthday, I would be 2 years older. And so he liked to rub that into people. Anyway, when we both got home from those missions, that's when we reconnected and started dating. And then we're inseparable. And yes.
So you fell in love and you got married and you were having your happy old life.
And then
young kids. And then what?
What happened?
So 2 weeks after our second anniversary, Stephen was at work and he had a seizure. And I was working somewhere else at the time as a medical assistant. And his brother called me. And on my watch, it showed up that he was calling me. And I was like, well, that is weird. He never calls me. Why is he calling me? So
Nobody calls people.
Exactly. So I went into the bathroom and I listened to the voicemail, and Christopher, who's my brother-in-law, said, I just wanted to let you know that Stephen had a little bit of a seizure and that Dorothy is on the way to the hospital to go meet with him, but he's okay. And that's all the message said. So
okay, interesting.
So then I go into my boss and I said, apparently Stephen had a seizure. Mind you, I'd only been working at this job for 2 months. 2 months. Because we had just built a house and we had just lived in the house for 2 months. And so I was like, I think I need to go to the hospital.
I think I need to go home. I need the hall pass, teacher.
Exactly. So he's like, that is totally fine. Go, let us know what is said there. So I'm driving down the freeway. I had about a 30-minute drive, and I totally missed the exit for the hospital because, you know, my mind is like, why did my husband just have a seizure? He probably has a brain tumor. And this whole time I'm talking to my mom on the phone, and she said, I don't think it's a brain tumor. I think you're just thinking worst case scenario. So then I get to the hospital and I walk into the room, and Dorothy and Stephen are sitting there, and they just look at me, and I'm like, great. And then the doctor comes in, and I think he had already gotten the MRI at that point, right? So he had done the CT. Stephen told you he didn't want me to know. He said, we're not telling her.
Like he could keep it a secret.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're not telling her.
It's our little secret.
Yeah. So they saw the CT scan, and then they said, we need more details. So then they sent him to the MRI. And by the time I had gotten there, he was done with the MRI. And then the doctor came in and said, okay, so there's definitely a tumor. And then he had the neurosurgeon come in, and the neurosurgeon was like, I don't think it's anything big. I think it's maybe just like a low grade glioma. I don't think it's anything serious. So we can wait till the next month to do surgery. So I'm like, okay, great. I'll just schedule it for when I have a day off. So August 25th, this was a month and a week after the seizure, after finding the tumor. He goes in for surgery, and it was taking them forever to get him back. And so finally I asked the nurse from the waiting room for the surgery, I asked her what was going on. So she said, "Oh, I don't know, let me check." So she went and checked, and then she came back in to the waiting room and said they had to get him all set up for brain mapping. So he's going back now. And I said, "Hold up, the plan wasn't to do brain mapping. Why are we doing brain mapping?" And she said,
"What's brain mapping? I don't know."
So it's just like they put these leads on your brain so that way they can check the functions to make sure that they're not going to like cause any deficits. And we had talked about that with the neurosurgeon about doing that before, but since he thought it was just a low-grade glioma, he was like, "Oh, we don't need to do that. We'll just do a biopsy, get a little bit out, and see what happens after." So the fact that he decided to do brain mapping, I was like, okay, this is not great. Not a great situation. So after the surgery went well, Stephen recovered really well. But when the neurosurgeon came down to tell us that he was done, he said that the tumor had doubled its size in that month. And so he said, "So I'm not thinking it's a low-grade glioma anymore."
Did you flip him off?
No, because he showed me pictures of Steven's brain. So I was like, okay, this is good. This is okay.
Okay, but were you annoyed that he was so blasé about it?
No, because I feel like...
Okay, because you're just like a good person, and so you're not like irritated with other people? Is that why?
No, I feel like just because I've worked in the medical field, I know that like stuff like that's just got to be shared.
Okay.
So Missy, how old were you guys at this time?
I was 24. Stephen was turning 23
Okay.
the next month.
So tumor doubles in size, and then what happened?
So 2 weeks later, they told us it would only be a couple days we'd find out the diagnosis. And 2 weeks later, we still hadn't heard. But then finally, the doctor called us and said, "Okay, do you guys want to come to my office to hear the news, or do you want us to just tell you over the phone?" So we said, "Just tell us over the phone."
That sounds ominous.
I know, right?
Just tell us now.
I know.
Yes.
So then he said, we sent it to Huntsman, we sent it to another cancer center, and we also did pathology here just because we wanted to make sure, which is why it took so long. But it's actually a grade 4 glioblastoma. So, yes. So then
Isn't it annoying that that it's like the glioblastoma is way worse than just a glial tumor?
Yeah. Yeah, because here we were like,
Glioma.
You know, they were like, "Oh, it's just like probably a low-grade glioma because you're young and healthy," and, you know, and then nope, we got the big aggressive tumor.
Okay, so then you start into the brain cancer world.
Yes. Yep.
Yes. And go.
Okay, so he originally sent us to this first oncologist who was terrible. And then we ended up going to Huntsman, and they said to him, which is just the cancer hospital here in Salt Lake, they said to Stephen that if he didn't do treatments, it would be 6 months. But with treatments, it was like probably a year. And so Stephen said, "Okay, well, I feel healthy. I'm fine. I don't want to spend 6 months of my life being sick. I'd rather just live it out how I want to." So he decided that he wasn't going to do any treatments, which was kind of hard for me. But at the same time, I totally got it because I also wouldn't want to, like, I mean, he knew he was going to die anyway. So he might as well go out like healthy and the way he wanted to rather than, you know, constant appointments and chemo and all of that stuff. So he did that, and for an entire year, he was fine. And then the tumor grew back and it ended up paralyzing the left side of his body. And so at that point, he said, "Okay, I'll do treatments since I'm still around." So then he started the treatment world, and he ended up having to get an emergency brain surgery at 2:30 a.m. on a Sunday because his brain was trying to come out of his eye.
Wait, did you see it?
No, so his pupil just blew.
I wish you guys could have seen our faces that we just made.
We had just signed his advance directive. Like literally that day we had signed it saying I was in charge of his medical care, right? So the neurosurgeon comes in to whisk him away, And she was like, would he want this? And I was like, yes. And she was like, he's going to die without it, but he'll probably die with it. Does he want this? And I was like, yeah, that's why we were here.
Oh my gosh.
No pressure, Missy.
I know.
But
I know.
Like who thinks about going through this in their 20s?
I know.
Nobody.
I know.
And you're living it.
So then the surgery ended up going really well. And she said that he probably wouldn't wake up, but that like I could go in and see him. And she said he's still very, very sick. I don't know how he's alive, but his brain was very angry. That is what those words is what
Stephen had an angry brain.
Did it flip the doctor off?
Probably. I don't know if you guys have ever heard what a deer sounds like when it's like screaming. Like
Deer scream?
Well, there's like a YouTube video where it like shows them screaming. That's what we said happened when she cut into a skull. Was it just kind of like made that noise at her?
Oh my gosh. Basically what it was, he was trying to flip the bird through his eye.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. I feel like at this point in time we need to pivot.
Okay.
Can we pivot?
Yes.
So, Missy, you and Stephen, you guys moved in with your in-laws. Is that correct? With Stephen's parents?
So when we first got married, we lived with them. And then we moved out to our house. And then when he started getting paralyzed, he couldn't walk up the stairs anymore. So we were in the process of getting ready to sell our house as this was all happening. And so, yes, we had moved back in with our in-laws.
Okay. So you had a close relationship with your mother and your father-in-law. You had lived with them. You're back with them. They're a part of your everyday cancer care team.
Yes.
Dorothy, do you want to tell us what happened after Missy and Stephen moved back in?
Okay. We were thrilled to have him back, be able to help them out. And I was the driver to take him up to Huntsman every day for his radiation. When we were building our home, we built an extra room behind our garage with a bathroom because we wanted to make sure that if our parents needed a place to live, that there wouldn't be very many stairs for them to get into the house. So we have like 3 stairs to get into the house.
Your parents,
yeah,
not your child.
Not our child.
That's got to be so hard, Dorothy, to see your son who has just gotten married and is just kind of starting his own life and his own adventure, found his wife, is married, and then this hits him, and it's like, and you're going to die. And you're never going to have any of the things that I had hoped and planned for you in your life.
Well, when it first happened, so my husband called me and said, get to the hospital quick because Stephen just had a seizure. I said, okay, what hospital? And so he told me. And so I was driving like a maniac to get there. And when I walked in the room, I just felt a peace. And so I thought, okay, he's going to be okay. It's going to work out okay. Even when we got the news that it was stage 4 glioblastoma, I just felt very peaceful. I didn't break down until probably the last 6 months that we knew that he was not going to make it.
His battle was pretty long for glioblastoma, correct?
Yeah.
3 years.
So that's a long time to hold out hope for that particular cancer. Okay.
FYI, if you go past 2 years with a glioblastoma, you're considered a long-term survivor.
Wow.
Living the dream.
So when we were still in the hospital, they were doing in Salt Lake, they were trying to do rehab with him, Stephen, and it wasn't working very well.
Well,
And
they knew that they were going to send us somewhere. That was
So-
like the end goal.
so I called Paul on the phone and I said, hon, we've got to find a place. I don't know. We've got to find some place that's going to be really good for Stephen. They said that there's some place down at Utah Valley, but I don't know where. And he said, I will go find it. So it's like after hours, like at 7 o'clock, I think at night, he goes into the hospital. And if you knew my husband, you would know that this was piece of cake for him because he could talk his way into anywhere. And he just talked his way through, and he found out where it was, and he actually got in and talked to the people. And he said he felt so good about it. So he told us this is where Stephen needs to be. And so that's where he ended up. So he was doing really good. They came home. Stephen
Lots of radiation and chemo during that time.
Yep.
Then the following summer,
we lost my father-in-law on May the 3rd at 10 o'clock at night. We got the phone call. And then on May the 4th at 2 a.m, we got a phone call that my dad had passed. My father-in-law and my husband were very, very close. And it hit him pretty hard. He had a hard time. Sorry.
No sorries.
It's a widow show.
Yeah, we don't say sorry about emotions.
He had hip replacement surgery in January. And
right after he turned 60.
Yeah.
So did Stephen and Paul fight over who got to use the wheelchair at that point?
Paul would not use a wheelchair.
Okay, good.
And Stephen was not using
Stephen would not use one either.
Okay. So they fought not to use the wheelchair.
Yeah,
Got it. Okay.
They were two peas in a pod. Yeah.
It's funny.
Okay. So we went down to Arizona for the funerals. We came back. Paul was working. He just kind of wasn't feeling real great. And I kind of forced him into going to the doctor because he wasn't a doctor going man. And the nurse practitioner told him that he had pneumonia, which is what I thought that he had just because he's had it multiple times. So then after he was on the medication for a week, and I said, "You are not getting any better. We have to go back." And so this time I went with him and we talked to the doctor, and he put him on the right medicine that he should have been on a week before. And so he said, "If you do not feel better in the morning, I want a phone call." And so we went to bed thinking, everything was great. He woke up and I said, "Please stay home." And he said, "I feel so good. I really do feel better." And I made him promise me that if he didn't feel well, that he would call me right away. And I kissed him goodbye, and we told each other that we loved each other. And he walked out the door and died on our driveway. Our daughter-in-law
didn't make it to the car.
He didn't even make it to the car.
He walked out, died on the driveway. The end.
Yes.
Yes. Our other daughter-in-law, Stephanie, went to go on her walk. So she went out the front door and she looked over and she saw him, and she got her husband, and then her husband came and got me.
Which is Dorothy's other son.
Yeah. And then we were doing CPR on him, and then I slapped him 4 times in the face.
Did you yell at him?
She did.
I did. I said, "Don't you do this to me. Don't you leave me."
What?
So at this point, you're a widow, but everybody is expecting Missy to become a widow, and she's not a widow. So
we
what?
called 911, and the ambulance and everyone came, and there was like a congregation of people surrounding, and I come walking out of the house, and they're all like looking at me. So I like go over to them, and they're like, "What happened to Stephen?" And I'm like, "It's not Stephen, it's Paul." And they were like, "What?" So and Stephen kept saying the obvious choice, and I didn't die.
But here's the funny side story about that is that while Christopher, our son, and I were out doing CPR, and Missy had come out, Stephen was in his underwear and was trying to get on.
He was calling 911.
Yes, he was talking to 911, trying to get out. Remember, his left side's paralyzed. And he was trying to get a pair of shorts on.
While talking on the phone.
Yes.
Oh.
No. And so he like walks out of our room, and Stephanie's right there, who's our sister-in-law. And he was like, Here, talk to them. I only have one hand, and I'm trying to get my pants up.
The 911 operator has got to be like, what in the
Yes.
world is happening at this house?
Yeah, because she was
This
like
is a meth lab.
She was asking him questions, and he didn't know because he hadn't been outside at all yet. So he was like, I don't know. So
Oh my gosh. So Dorothy, your father-in-law had died, your dad had died, and now your husband had died, and your son is dying of cancer.
But he was doing great at the time.
Okay. Did they ever
that's
think that
nice.
Steven was going to kick it?
No.
Okay.
No. Because the tumor, the second time around, the tumor was just always there and growing and shrinking and growing and shrinking.
It couldn't decide what it wanted to do.
Missy, can you please tell us what you named his tumor and why?
Yes. So we decided from the very beginning that we were going to name the tumor so that way when we were frustrated at it, it had a name.
Okay.
So we named it Kevin.
And who is that named after?
It is named after Kevin Malone from the US version of The Office. Because in that, Kevin spills his chili all over the floor. And so we always said that Steven's Kevin was spilling his chili
Oh my gosh.
in Steven's brain.
So
Gross.
Dorothy, you are like Anita and me in that you are a sudden death widow. So do you have the same kind of widow brain problems that we have as far as not remembering anything ever?
Yes. It's really hard. Sometimes
Yeah.
I think I'm like losing my mind, but it's like there's been so much death so quickly that it's just, you just don't remember.
Yeah,
That's a
somebody threw
lot.
a hand grenade at your life. I mean, really, you went from living just a happy, normal life. Well, I don't know if your life was happy and normal before, but I kind of think it was more than this. And then all of this happens. So Paul dies. You have to switch gears from Stephen to Paul, funeral, finding a headstone, all of those things. And then you are still helping to care for Stephen, right?
Right.
Yeah. And then how long did it take before Stephen finally died after Paul? I don't want to say finally. That makes it sound like, let's get to the, get to the
Chase.
death.
So Paul died June 14th of 2019, and Stephen died August 31st of 2020.
Oh, so a whole
So
year
year
afterwards.
and 2 months.
And Missy, you are close to Paul, correct?
Correct.
You guys all have this history of being close with the in-laws. I just would like to point this out. It's kind of amazing.
So I felt like, because me, Dorothy, Paul, and Steven would always go to like Disneyland together and just have a great time. And we're always like
That's
going
fun.
out to dinner together. And I felt like because we moved back in, it ended up being a big blessing because we ended up spending so much more time with Paul before he passed away. And then we were able to be that support for Dorothy also.
Were you thinking ahead like, Dorothy's a widow now, I'm going to become a widow?
Honestly, no, because at the time, Steven was doing really well. Like probably it was that for me and Steven health-wise, that was like the best summer that we had in 3 years.
He was
Wow.
out mowing lawn.
Yeah.
What?
So Paul,
Yeah.
So Paul had a business where he helps adults with special needs find jobs. And then one of those jobs that they did was like yard work. So after Paul passed away, Steven and I kind of like took that part of the business over. And I have videos of Steven like pushing a lawnmower and stuff. Like he was
Okay.
doing really well.
I just think that that's kind of like Inception, because then Stephen might have been qualified as an adult with special needs because he had cancer and he had had this hemiplegia and all of this.
Yep.
That's the master becomes the teacher. No, the student becomes the teacher.
Yeah. And
Or
he
whatever.
technically, I mean, this probably is bad to admit, but he shouldn't have been driving. But I didn't feel comfortable driving a trailer, so he would drive the trailer.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
And not just a trailer, it was a 15-passenger van with the trailer.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Let's
But
not
he was
focus on
never
that.
alone. He was never alone, and he always knew when a seizure was going to happen. So, like, we could, like, switch if said seizure was going to happen. But luckily, we never had to deal with that while he was driving. So, June of 2020, Stephen all of a sudden woke up one morning and he couldn't pee. Like, he could not at all.
Cancer is so rude. It takes like all of your, like most precious and
I know.
private things from you.
I know. So I was like, Kate, that's obviously not right. So this, mind you, this is happening June 13th or June 12th. So we're coming up on Paul's 1-year mark. Okay. And I'm like, oh no, this is not good. So I call his oncologist and he says, get up right away. We need to do an MRI because we're worried about it having moved to a spine now, and that's impinging it. So now that's why he can't pee. So I'm sitting there going, great. We're coming up on Paul's 1 year and Stephen's going to be stuck in the hospital and we're not even going to be able to like do the cemetery thing with the family because he's going to be stuck. But also it was during COVID, so I couldn't be in there with him. So he's just stuck in Huntsman by himself getting this MRI.
Him and Kevin.
Exactly. But luckily the cancer had not spread to his spine. So they just gave him a catheter for a few weeks and then were able to take it out and all was well. And then we had a follow-up with the oncologist on June 30th. And the tumor had like looked stable, but they were saying that they were surprised that he was still able to walk just because of where the tumor was at. So, and like how much it had grown, even though it was stable. So we just decided that we would keep moving forward with like the regular plan that we were on with the chemo and stuff. But then on July 4th of 2020, Stephen had a seizure and it like was kind of a long one. So we ended up having to go to the hospital to get a medicine to like stop it because the rescue medicine we had was not working. And from that point was kind of when we knew that it was ending because he was like having little seizures multiple times a day and getting really weak, getting really tired, and not being able to use the bathroom and things like that. So then August, the beginning of August is when he got placed into hospice care. And then that was really rough because watching him not even be able to like sit up by himself or really be able to do anything, like if his head was even just positioned the wrong way, it would like make him start seizing. Like it was, so we had a neck pillow on him constantly to just try to keep his head in the same spot. And then it got to the point where it would have to like be 2 or 3 people getting him out of the bed to go to the bathroom, and just a lot of heartache there. But the day before he passed away, he was like pretty coherent. He had French toast for breakfast, was feeling pretty good, but then he had a headache. And then he told me that his eye was hurting. And so I said, okay, look at me and let me see your eye. So he kind of turned and looked at me and his eyelid was closed, but the other eyelid was opened. So I said, can you open that eye? And he said, it is opened. And I said, no, it's not. Can you try to open it? So he was trying to open it and it wouldn't. So I lifted up his eyelid and I saw that his pupil had blown again. And so I said, okay, this is definitely the end. And then it was just a few hours after that he went unconscious. So then the following morning, so August 31st, I kind of just knew that was going to be the day that he died. So I had asked my mom, because Dorothy had to go to work. So I asked my mom if she would come down and just be with me, because that was like my biggest thing, was I did not want to be alone when he passed away. And so my mom came down and had gotten there. And then 10 minutes later, Steven starts going gray and he like turns his head and opens his mouth and stop breathing. So I like start feeling for his pulse and I put my head on his chest and I don't hear a heartbeat. And by this time, his sister had also come be like with me too. And so she comes in and is feeling his chest and my mom's feeling his chest and none of us felt a heartbeat. So then I called his hospice nurse, who her husband also died of a glioblastoma when Stephen got diagnosed with his glioblastoma.
What?
So that was comforting because she like could tell me what was going to happen pretty much exactly. So anyway, I call her and I say, okay, Stephen has passed. And so she said, okay, I'll be right there. So I get off the phone with her and then I call my dad and I'm like, hi dad, just wanted to let you know that Stephen has passed away. And my dad was like, oh, are you serious? And I was like, yep, he sure has. And then while I was on the phone with my dad, so it had been like 5 to 10 minutes of Stephen not breathing, no heartbeat, nothing. All of a sudden he pinks up and he breathes.
Back from the dead.
Exactly. So I'm on the phone with my dad and I go, Stephen just came back. I'll call you later. So I hang
Never
up
mind.
the phone.
False alarm.
False alarm. He's just playing a prank on us. So I hang up with my dad and I call the hospice nurse and I'm like, Lisa, he's breathing again. And she could hear him in the background. Like it was this terrible, terrible breathing, like a horrendous sound. So she was like, is that him in the background? And I said, yes, that is him. And she's like, I'm 2 minutes away. I'll be there super fast. So she gets there and we're like checking his vitals and everything. Blood pressure is perfect. Pulse perfect. Like everything is just looking great other than the fact that he's still like unconscious and doing this horrible
Brain
breathing.
cancer, not perfect.
Yeah. Yes. But like she was amazed that like his pulse and his blood pressure and his temperature was fine. But Dorothy was not there, right? So we call her, tell her what had happened. She comes in the room, but then like leaves because she has to go drop the clients off somewhere. And then she comes back so that way the clients can mow their yard. And she comes walking in at 11:23. And at 11:25, Stephen finally passed. Like for real this time. So we like to joke that Paul came to get him and said, crap, Dorothy's not here. She's already mad at me. I don't want her to smack me again. So Stephen, you need to go back. So he was like shoving him back into his own body. And Stephen was not happy, which was why that breathing was happening. But then once Dorothy came, Paul was like, great, now we can go.
Now Dorothy will know that we were there and now we're leaving. Bye.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Dorothy, I don't know if you had this experience, but right after Paul died, did you really like sense him kind of all around you? Did you feel like he was really close to you?
I still do.
She could basically be a medium.
Really?
Ooh.
Wait.
She can like
is
have
my language.
conversation.
But my question was going to be, when Stephen died, did you feel like his presence was even stronger? Like it was like he did come back? Because I've heard that from multiple people that like when death is there, it's like almost like when they say, you know, when somebody's being born, it's like you can feel people around you. But when death happens too.
Stephen would have like full-on conversations with his dad.
Really?
Yeah. And 2 nights before Stephen passed away, like when he was still coherent and everything, he all of a sudden like turned and looked at me and said, what did you say? And I said, I didn't say anything. And Stephen said, yes, you did. And I said, no, I really didn't. I was just sitting here because you were sleeping. And he said, well, somebody just told me that this was my last night. And that I like needed to not worry anymore because this was my last night, which it was his last night where he was like coherent. And I was like, well, was this a man or was it a woman? And he said, I guess it sounded like my dad. So I think that like, cause Stephen had just been like, how much longer? Like, this is miserable. I just want to die. I'm done with this. I'm ready to go. Just come get me, Dad. I'm ready. So I think that was his dad's way of being like, just one more night. That's it. That's all you're going to really have to suffer.
Okay, Missy, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Did watching Dorothy go through losing her husband, did it freak you out? Like, holy crap, this is going to be so hard. Or did you watch her and be like, she's doing it, I'm going to be able to do it?
I would say more the latter. I don't know. I didn't like at that time when she became a widow, it wasn't
on your mind.
Excuse me, she doesn't like to be called a widow.
Oh. What do you like to be called?
I'm still married.
Okay.
So are we.
Because you and Paul are still talking to each other and hanging out.
But yeah, it didn't really register at the time.
Okay.
I don't think.
That you were on the same track, the same learning track.
Yeah.
And you guys, you have such a unique situation in that you are in-laws and you're close to each other. And of course, you are both widows, even though Dorothy's not admitting to be a widow. That's fine. So,
she's an incognito widow,
Yes.
an undercover widow.
Yes.
we know that a lot of people that are widows that are our friends, they don't have great relationships with their in-laws, or sometimes when the death happens, it turns really nasty. And others do have great relationships with the in-laws. It runs the whole gamut. So it's such a unique story to hear of you guys that you are so close. So I remember when we first met Missy, and she would talk a lot about she's hanging out with her mother-in-law, and like she was on the phone with her mother-in-law and like hanging out with her mother-in-law, and we're like, what is happening? What is this situation?
We were like, are you being trapped? Do you need to be rescued?
Yeah. She's like, no, she's rad. Tell us what that's been like for you to have each other through this process.
Well, it's nice to have somebody she's basically my daughter. She knows what I'm going through as well as I know what she's going through. And on the hard days, I can read her like a book. She may not think that I can, but I can tell instantly just by a text or even a short phone call how she's doing. And then I know how to help her.
Let's just say also, it was very nice to have a mother-in-law in the same situation and like the early grief portion also, because I knew she wasn't sleeping. So when I wasn't sleeping and I was having a hard time, I could just call her because I knew she would be up. So there's like times where we'll be up till like 1 a.m. talking on the phone just because
we don't sleep.
It's like y'all are in junior high.
Yeah, exactly.
Together, except Missy is actually a golden girl in her heart. She's like 96.
Yeah. 29 going on 99.
Exactly.
Dorothy, I have another question for you.
Okay.
This is a topic that we talk a lot about, especially when we discuss in-laws. People tend to get in grief competitions with other family members. You are mourning the same person, but you're mourning a different loss. Can you talk about the difference in losing your son versus losing your husband? What those losses, how they're different?
Paul and I had said after Stephen's diagnosis that if one of us had to go to give Stephen more time, that one of us would gladly go. So in that aspect, I think the right person went, because I can't imagine Missy having to go through this without me, because Paul couldn't have been the same support that I have been to her, if that makes sense. Losing Paul, he was my best friend, and it was very traumatic, but having to just have the Band-Aid ripped off and him go, I would do that again in a heartbeat, because it was quick. Not that it was easy, but it was quick. Watching your son go down the hill is very, very hard when he had his whole life in front of him. And the possibility of, well, we knew he wasn't going to make it, but to not.
We never told him that, though.
Yeah. I never told him, I know you're going to die, Stephen. I just said, look, you're here for as long as you're here, and I will be here to help you and Missy both. But to not be able to see him have children and be a father, that's very hard.
Okay, this is going to sound like the rudest question ever. It's very,
Not to
very
me.
black and white. But we want to know, and there may not be an answer because we find things are always, quote, different. What's worse, losing your husband or losing your child? You're welcome. And if you don't want to answer it, we'll cut it out.
It's okay. Well, I think it's two different experiences because one, you lose your spouse that you have been with. Well, because we were married for 38 years before he passed. So I lost somebody that I was with for 38 years. And then you lose a child. And I think it's a totally different kind of grief because you not only grieve because he was so young, but you grieve for what could have been for him and Missy.
Yeah, Stephen and I had just celebrated our 5th anniversary when he passed away.
How did you celebrate your anniversary, Missy?
We celebrated by going and designing our headstone because I told him that if we didn't, that he was going to have an unmarked grave because I was not making that decision.
FYI, everyone, Missy is the best because she just talks about this stuff like super factual. And I mean, you had such a long time to deal with glioblastoma. What was that like for you as far as the grieving process? It's, of course, not sudden like Dorothy's.
I feel like I experienced a lot of anticipatory grief. Like it was, I was very much like an emotional roller coaster. And then toward the end, my anxiety was just like so much that it was really bad. But it was also like I couldn't take a break because I was like, but what if he dies while I'm like out on the porch taking a breather? You know what I mean? So I feel like my mental health definitely took a nosedive. I'm doing much better now. And I feel like it was also, I don't want to say like a blessing, but it was nice that Paul went before because then we were able to like have everything planned. Like Stephen planned his entire funeral, like who was speaking songs, who was being his pallbearers, like all of that stuff. He planned everything out. That way we went to the mortuary, he picked out his own casket, his own flowers, like he planned everything out because we saw what Dorothy went through having to do all of that. And he was like, I feel like the greatest gift that I can give to you is to not let you go through that.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you.
I know. So we were able to like talk about a lot of things and like, have all of that. Like we were able to talk about what I was going to do moving forward. And like, he told me, this is where I would like you to live. Like, those sort of things. So
really?
Nice, yeah.
Okay. Speaking of future conversations, you also have another unique element of your story. And Stephen has haunted Anita and me about this particular thing, like for real. Like there was a period of time where it was every single day, and I was like, Missy, you've got to tell Stephen to stop. Tell our listeners about this.
Okay, so when Stephen and I first got married, I worked at a fertility clinic. And when he was starting to do chemo and stuff, I didn't work for them anymore. I worked at a different place. But when he started to do chemo and stuff, my boss from that fertility center reached out to me and said, hey, we will freeze Stephen's sperm for you, no charge. So we were able to like get that all taken care of before Stephen passed away. Or before Stephen even started chemo. So we had that all taken care of and whatnot. And then when he was dying, we talked about if I would use it or not. And he said, I would like for you to. So then he started haunting Mel and Anita. So tell me
we had never heard of people that were widows that were doing the IVF stuff until like randomly one day, and then it was like every single day, all these things. And so I would tell Missy, and she's like, oh, here's my story. And it just kept coming every day. So I took it as a sign as, okay, I guess this is for Missy. Here's another person. Here's another person. Because a lot of us widows know that, I mean, even finding other widows can be hard, but then trying to find widows in specific situations like that is even more rare. So have you been able to connect with other widows that have done IVF since then?
Have. Yeah, well, I've talked to two who have, one is in the middle of it, the other just had her baby when you had Sarah on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But she is a sweetheart.
Yeah. So even though it's not a common thing, and not a lot of people can have access, to the sperm, that may be something in your future, because Stephen planned out your life for you.
He
obviously.
did. He was so nice. And he even got presents ready for all of anniversary, birthday, Christmas, Valentine's Day. Him and Dorothy got presents already. And I know which room they're in, and I don't go into that room.
Wait, for how long? For how many years?
I think
30? You told me it was like
3 or 5 years. I have
really
a lot
hope
of cards.
none of them. I hope none of those things are perishable or like an alive thing.
A frog.
I got you a kitty.
No, thank goodness I drew the line there.
Okay.
But he actually wrote in the cards.
That's so cute.
And his writing towards the end wasn't real great.
Crap. Yeah.
But he wanted to be able to write in cards. And our neighbors are so great. They make cards. And so I had them make anniversary, Christmas, birthday, Valentine's Day cards for her. And then while she was in the shower, I would say, okay, here's another couple to write on.
Yeah, because remember, my anxiety was such that I couldn't leave him. So the only time he ever had to plan for this was when I was in the shower, which I took such fast showers because I was so used to being like, I need to get in, out.
Stephen
They were
Schubert.
like, Missy, go away. We need to write you some letters that I can't write right now, so I can only one letter at a time.
Exactly. That's
it's
exactly what
dear,
I would do.
and then Missy was out of the shower again. And the next time, Miss out of the shower again.
Man, well, I just want to say, Stephen Schubert, you're the gift that keeps on giving. So good job, Stephen, even though you're not seen right now. You guys, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your unique story and relationship. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode today. We hope you found it helpful. Make sure you check out the Widow Wives Club if you happen to be a widow or widower or somebody who has lost your partner. It's on Facebook. The links are all over the place. And join our Patreon. It's patreon.com/WWDN. Keep the podcast going. If you have not given us a rating and review, we implore you to do so. It helps other people find the podcast. And finally, if you want to get us a taco, do it at buymeacoffee.com
/Widow We Do Now.
Until we talk to you again, I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
I'm Missy.
I'm Dorothy.
And we're just two young widows and a widow duo extraordinaire. And we're all trying to figure out
Widow we do now. This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks, and so you don't have to pay extra for that, and you still get great service.
Yep, Anita and I have traveled all over, and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it, and my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys. Such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.